Well, to discuss all of this in a bit more detail, I'm joined by Amin Saikal from Canberra. He is a Professor Emeritus of Middle Eastern Studies at the Australian National University. We're hearing reports that a truce or a ceasefire might be inching closer, again, possibly involving the exchange of hostages. What more can you tell us on that? Is there anything else that's known?
Well, there's not much more is known, but of course that's the most viable way for Israel to secure some of those hostages, and also for Hamas to make sure that the Israeli indiscriminate bombing and artillery bombing of civilians stopped. And I think the two sides still seem to be wide apart on that, because Israel is absolutely determined to eliminate Hamas. And Hamas so far has proved to be very resilient. And now we are close to 2.5 months in this fighting. And yet Israel military, which once described as the most disciplined and the best equipped and the most powerful military in the region, has not been able to subdue Hamas, and let alone eliminating that force in Gaza.
And we were just talking there about the US Secretary of Defense, who's scheduled to arrive in Israel today. He'll, of course, be addressing the future of this attack and this conflict, and putting a bit of pressure, more pressure on Israel to move or to transition to a less intense phase. Do you think he'll be able to get through to Netanyahu and his war cabinet?
I think the problem with the position of the United States is that it's still backing Israel in its goal of eliminating Hamas. And if that is going to remain the situation, then it's going to be very difficult for the United States to influence Prime Minister Netanyahu to the extent that he will enter very serious negotiation with Hamas to secure the release of the hostages and return for cessation of hostilities and complete hostilities between the two sides. I personally think that probably the Secretary of Defense may pressure Israel to become more precise and targeting in its operations. But Israel so far has not really accepted that, and has not really honored any commitment that it may have made to the United States. And on that basis, I think it is going to be very difficult for the United States to really pull the Israeli leadership into line, particularly the leadership which is very much dominated by extremists who really want actually the elimination of Palestinians in one form or another, or perhaps removal of the so-called Palestinian problem from their minds and on their sides.
And what about Prime Minister Netanyahu personally, under pressure, of course, internationally, as you've just been saying, under pressure, of course, at home as well, both from different parts of his own government as well as the families of hostages? How much longer do you think he can survive?
Well, I mean, he's already said that he will continue the operations with or without the support of the international community. I don't think Israel has ever really paid much attention to the international pressure or international community's demands. It has ignored them in the past. But in all this, it has been protected by the United States. I mean, as we know, during the current war, the United States has already used its veto power in the UN Security Council twice to protect Israel, and also, of course, used it twice in the General Assembly of the United Nations votes in support of a ceasefire. I think the best way that the United States could really put pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu and his extremist colleagues in the cabinet is to basically reduce the amount of American military and financial and economic aid to Israel, let's not forget that Israel is capable of carrying out all these operations, and which is resulting in massive loss of lives among the Palestinians, both for that matter innocent lives, is because it receives considerable amount of military aid and financial aid from the United States. But if the United States is really serious about bringing this hostility to an end, it should really join other members of the Security Council to call for a ceasefire, as it did in the 2006 war between Hezbollah and Israel, and that brought that war to an end. And the best way to pressure Prime Minister Netanyahu and his government is to basically reduce the amount of aid that's really providing to that country, because Israel is basically able to do all these things which we've been doing with considerable amount of support from material support, not just political support, but material support from the United States.
Absolutely. Amin Saikal from Canberra, thank you so much.